In this video, we hop into the current state of mortgage rates. We brought on one of our local lenders right here in San Diego, and he goes through a few things on where mortgage rates are, why they are, where they are, and most importantly, when he expects them to potentially come back down. So stay tuned for that. If you missed our first video, our first conversation with him, go check it out. It was the last video. We talk about how mortgage rates are affecting buyers, how it's affecting sellers, and kind of the demand we're seeing out there, the demand he's seeing out there, give you a kind of indication of what to expect in the coming months. So be sure to go check that one out. And just as a reminder, I'm Chris Erickson with the Beach Life Group right here in North County, San Diego. If you're thinking about making the move, you got some questions, just book a discovery call with us. All our information is below. We got your back when making the move here in North County, San Diego. Let's get into it.
One question I'd like to hear your thoughts on, Amir, as a lending professional is, so typically the spread between the 10-year bond and the mortgage rate is like 1 3/4, under 2% difference. Right now it's more like 3. So if you take the 10-year bond, which is close to 4, and you add 2.5%, 3% on top of that, that's where you come in with your 30-year fixed rate. Well, in the past long time, it was more like 1 3/4% difference. So we're not only in an elevated rate environment, we're also in an elevated, that's like a fear gauge in my mind. Do you think that's going to change and go back to normal, or is it going to stay that way? Or,
That's a good question. I could actually answer that specifically. So Lauren and I were actually on the phone yesterday talking just randomly about like stock and bond stuff, right? But like when you look at the 10-year treasury, that's a risk-free rate, right? Like it's a guaranteed rate of return, right? When you look at like mortgages, there's risks associated with the mortgages because of foreclosure probability, right? The reason why you see such a spread between the two is because the trajectory right now is north from what Fed's doing, right? So this is why you see like such a wide gap. In a normalized market where the movement's organic, you see a smaller gap, right? Because the mortgage rates are just a tad bit ahead, but now they're considered ahead because the market's going, rates are going to even go beyond that, right? So it becomes an issue of being able to market that mortgage in the secondary market. So like when the wholesalers and the lenders are trying to sell their packages on the secondary market, they have to have these higher rates because the investors are going to want to see a bigger return because they're anticipating that in 6 or 8 months, I'm going to get that return, so I'm going to get it down.
any thoughts about how it plays out then when we flip the other side of the coin? Because I know a lot of these guys have your costs are built in the first part of the loan. When somebody's getting a mortgage, there's a lot of cost built in the first. They probably don't make a profit the first year or something. So if rates flip too and go down, then all those guys that we have at a 6.5% mortgage right now are going to refi, which means they're going to blow out all those mortgages too. So to me, it's kind of which one of them is it? Or maybe it's both that make it pushed up even further.
I think you're asking about like the spread, like what's going to happen.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to look at it as when we see that come back down, then I think we're going to be in a normal market. I think that's going to be one of my indicators that, hey, we're back to a normal market. Maybe when we get more inventory, because we're still, inventory-wise, we're at like 1.1 month supply. Well, if you look at the history of San Diego County buying and selling real estate, that's super low. I mean, we would have, before 2 years ago, a year ago, we would have said, whoa, 1 month supply, that's crazy. Now you read the news, it's up 57% from last year. Well, yeah, it's up from half a month. So all of these things, I guess what I'm getting at with this is hire somebody that knows what they're doing, because there's a lot of stuff going on that you need to look at your specific situation during this specific time and say, what makes sense for me? This is going to be an interesting market to see when that part comes down. I'm definitely going to be like, hey, we're getting to a more normal market when the gap comes down. Like the fear's out of the market, I guess, from the mortgage standpoint.
I think the spread, what's going to happen is it's going to be a 2-part move, right? When Fed stops the narrative of raising interest rates, Lord, you're going to see the spread between the 10-year and mortgage rates get right back into that like 150 basis point range, right? 200 basis point range.
Yeah.
Fed's going to have to implement QE. In fact, Powell said it. He said that I'm fine overcorrecting because I have the tools and toolbox to correct this. He's referring to QE, right? Quantitative easing, right? Examples of quantitative easing were like post-2000, right? We dropped rates in order to stimulate the economy. The most recent iteration of that was actually at the start of COVID, right? they started injecting a bunch of money into the economy by buying bonds, and they've lowered rates in order to stimulate activity out of fear of a recession, right? So Fed uses these policies to either help bolster up the economy or slow it down. Today, they're like slowing it down, right? So there's QT, quantitative tightening, QE, quantitative easing, right? So QE is on the horizon, because what's going to happen is these rates are eventually going to go too far, and you're going to see deflationary environment. When that happens, Fed's going to have to step in to stimulate the economy. The way that they're going to do that is they're going to lower rates, because they've already brought them up to probably between the 5 and 6 range at that point, right? So when they start pulling the trigger and start doing that, now the markets are going to look the other way, right? They're going to have a different perspective. Like right now with the mortgage rates, the reason why you see them at 7, right, is a couple of different reasons. They pay more in the secondary market. That's why the lenders are doing that, because also the secondary market isn't buying those with the expectation that they're going to keep them for 30 years. In fact, they're buying with the expectation with the fact that they're probably not going to have them in 4 years, right? And so that gets priced into the return, right? So on the way down, right, you'll see the exact opposite. You'll see a closer spread between where mortgage rates are at and the 10-year treasury is at, because it's the exact same. It's like, look, the trajectory is down. These people are getting these mortgages. If it keeps going down, they're going to refinance. We're not going to keep that thing for very long, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll see it narrow down.
What date this year will they flip the switch and go back to
Yeah. No, that is a good point. Like you mentioned,
I mean, when are they going to stop doing crazy and turn the point, turn the other,
that's kind of
maybe not turn the other direction, but stop. Yeah.
If you would have asked me yesterday, right? If you'd asked me yesterday, my answer would have been like confidently, oh, by Q4 we'll be hitting the brakes and possibly like flipping the switch. You asked me after this morning, the inflation data report, I'm like, I think we get lucky if it's in Q4. I think it's really Q1, Q2 of next year when they start hitting the brakes. I think the Fed lending rate's going to go to 5.5%.
Inflation's not doing what they want it to do as much as they want it to do it yet. So I'm glad you're seeing that. I was talking to another lender yesterday, and their conversation with that particular buyer was, well, you'll be able to refi in 6 months. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
So I'm super conservative on that kind of stuff. So I'm like, don't plan on it for a year plus. After he said what he said, I'm saying, I think you're down the road a bit. But anyway, well, I think one last thing we should cover real quick is the question of, hey, so I'm a home seller or I'm a home buyer, and I realize this is a great time to either buy or sell, because buying, less competition, maybe I can get the house I want. Selling, prices, their inventory still isn't that high, so it's a great time to sell. Also, what are some of the things I could do to make this monetary jump? What can we do to finagle it to get me through? Like, hey, the prices seem high, mortgage rates seem high. Is there some things I can do? Maybe we could do talk about buy down, talk about whatever. Here's a couple different things you can look at, scenarios if you're a buyer. Here's a couple things to look at if you're a seller to help your home look more attractive to the current buyers. So Amir, tell me this. I'm a home seller, and I can see that they're starting to trickle some more listings, and I can see it's market time's getting more because of interest rates going up. What can I do as a home seller to try to get more buyers in my house and maybe get more competition for my house?
The number one easiest way that you can stimulate the sale of your home, offer to pay for the 2-1 buy down. Offer to fund that. As a seller, it's going to cost you between 2 and 2.5% of your purchase price. And that will pay to reduce their rate by a couple percent in the first year, the buyer's rate, and second year, and it'll help mitigate the damage of a mortgage payment at these high rates, right? The reason why this is relevant is this, is if you talk to 100 mortgage professionals right now, 99% of them will tell you within the next year or two, rates are going to come down. That's general consensus, right?
Right.
But that's not just people with wishful thinking agendas, but you just have to look at where rates have been at historically. They haven't been this high. In fact, they're higher than they were in 2004 and 5, right? And that was like the peak before that, right? Eventually, like a normalized interest rate environment is between 4 and 5%. With homes appreciating around 8% a year, 4 or 5% interest rate, that's a good interest rate. The reason why this will help is because eventually, we all know rates are going to come down. This will help create a bridge for the buyer where they can afford the home that they want to purchase from you as a seller for a given period of time. And inside of that foreseeable period of time, they will get introduced to a window where they can have a more permanent, lower housing payment.
And if you are thinking about making the move in 2023, feel free to reach out and book a discovery call with our team. All the information is right down below. Every situation is different. Everybody has different goals. So let's help get you dialed in. We got your back when making the move here in North County, San Diego.